quick overview, what's gone on since 1980s, a quick summary of that, and then how the jails have actually been set up so that the more people they incarcerate, the more money they make, and how ICE detention fits right into that, and how there is not any regulation of overcrowding. And so, this haiku poem has kind of become my signature haiku poem. I'm here today to try to make sure all the questions escape. So I'm going to go rapidly through some of this. Starting in 1969, the average state prison population was 3,000 people, and the jail population, this is all the jails, was only 2,300. From 1970 to 2003, things went up. In the 1980s, the inmate population in Kentucky doubled, and it almost doubled again in the 1990s. And so now the annual budget during this time went for corrections went from $7 million a year to $830 million now. That does not include the budget for the county jails, which is another $400 to $500 million, and then among all 50 states, we're number 6. So we're number 6 from the bottom. So this is an earlier version of myself, 1983. I'm training jail personnel somewhere near Somerset. I mentioned how the prison and jail population went up. This made the front page of the Courier Journal in 2004, and it also made the Kentucky Law Journal, which is the law journal out of the University of Kentucky. This particular article was written by the guy that wrote the Kentucky Penal Code. This is all the criminal laws of Kentucky. And so what happened is that the prison population skyrocketed, and the state didn't have enough prison space, and so everything overflowed into the county jails. And so the county jails, in a 5-year period, the population increased 73%. And then from 2005 to 2022, the county jail capacity increased 9,000 beds, and the prison capacity only expanded 1,487 beds, and half of those were in a private prison. So the bottom line is that jails were stuck with all these state inmates serving state time. They should be in a state prison, but they are serving longer term sentences in jails, and the jails have to worry about how to pay for this. Well, how do you pay for this? Well, you get the state to pay you a per diem, so much per inmate per day. And what that means is that the more people you put in your jail, the more money you make. So this is a chart that I made up that shows overcrowding in Kentucky jails in 2022. What you see there in the red boxes is the percentage that the jails are overcrowded. So Adair County is at 196%. That means they have 100 beds and they have 196 inmates. That's what that means. The other thing that I learned, and I learned this fairly recently, is that, anybody know how many inmates in Kentucky jails have died? You'll hear about the ones in the Metro jail here. They make the local news. But how about the rest of the state? You never hear anything. Well, guess what? A reporter at the Lexington Herald Leader found out, and from 2000 until 2024, it was 234 people. So right at the time when all this overcrowding was taking place, 63 people died that year in Kentucky jails. So this is you can look this up online, and you can use the PDF to get to this. This is the weekly jail count. You can find out how many inmates are in every jail throughout the entire state. And so what you see here is that when this chart was made, which was the 7th of August, that the total for all inmates in the county jails is 20,000 people. And of those, 7,000 are state inmates. And so there are various categories of that. But the federal inmate total is right down here in this little blue box, right there. The federal inmates, that's 2,558 people. Those are people that are not state prisoners, and they aren't county prisoners. They're being held by federal authorities. Immigrants fall into this category. So all those people are not immigrants, but about 700 of them are. And so I want to get right into Kentucky's situation. This came out in February, before the current crisis became so apparent. This is Boone County was the only official immigration jail in Kentucky. Boone County. Oh. Boone County. And this is a fairly new jail. And so it was at capacity on February 3rd, holding 175 ICE detainees. And in June, it's holding 206, so it's over capacity. Other jails are piled onto this. Hopkins County joined the list of detention facilities. And you can find out how many immigrants are in these jails under a website called detentionreports.com. And once again, you can get this from the PDF. So this jail was capable of holding 416 inmates. That's how many beds they had. But guess what? They had around 90 empty beds. Something Jailer Lewis said has impacted the jail's budget in recent years. He quotes, here's a quote from him: "The state inmate count is down, which is a good thing for the Kentucky taxpayers, but it also means far less revenue for the jail." He went on to say, and that's a key point, think about revenue for the jail. So he went on to say that every one of these people have charges, criminal charges. It's not about ICE going around looking for people because they are in the country illegally. It's about the fact they committed crimes they are here, that while they're here. This is the company propaganda line that immigrants are all criminals. This is, we're going to talk about this. This sort of rush to incarcerate for money is not happening just in Kentucky. Here is a headline from the Marshall Project, which is a great source of information. There is a 24-bed jail in rural Missouri that is busy transporting immigrants. They have 3 vans that transport hundreds of miles per day. This jail makes $110 a day for every ICE detainee that stays in that jail. And so what that tells you is that ICE has a lot of money. I've talked a lot about how the inmate population went up. What happens if the inmate population in Kentucky goes down? Well, in 2012, it did go down. It went down a couple of thousand people because about 2,000 inmates got out about 6 months early. The jailers did not like this. This is in the front page of the Courier. Early release plan arrests jail profits. Many counties feeling the pinch as the state's needs decrease. This is a quote from this article. Christian County has seen 58 state inmates released early and may need $2.5 million from the county in the coming year to offset losses. So here we see profit and losses and associated with the jail. Guess what? Crime went down in 2024. It's been going down for a decade. Kentucky is actually on the lower end, but you wouldn't know it from listening to the news. But the state county jail population went down from 2020 to 2025. It actually overall decreased. And so the total of state inmates decreased 35%. Federal inmates did not decrease. They raised 5%, but So the grand total was that they had a 22% decline in the number of inmates. How did the legislature respond to that? Well, you have state legislators in tough and on crime camouflage hunt for scared voters. Financial incentives work to increase the number of prisoners held in the jail. The jailers are elected, and private prison corporations and the vendors that serve these jails, they all have lobbyists to work for them. So we have the lowest crime rate in a 15-state region. So why did the legislature respond to that? Well, last year they passed the Safer Kentucky Act. This is House Bill 5. This enhances the penalties for 34 felonies. This is the most regressive sentencing legislation in decades. And so I got very angry about that, and I wrote a piece that was in the Kentucky Lantern, and you can look it up. I'm going to move on. There are 47.8 million foreign-born people in the United States. 11 million, which is 23%, are unauthorized. So 77% are in the country legally. I want to move on to the money. In the black there is immigration, the amount of money that's going to ICE right now. And so if you look at the chart to this side, that is how much money is going to ICE. This is how much goes to the FBI, the Secret Service, Drug Enforcement, Department of Justice, ATF, and even if you put the Federal Bureau of Prisons in there, it doesn't come close to this. So basically, ICE has been given more money than God, and this is what is kind of waiting for us.
Yeah.
So if you have this much...
Can you give us a number of the amount of money that ICE is actually getting?
Well, they're getting $45 billion just for the detention.
Okay.
And then there's a whole lot more for the rest of it.
Okay.
Like 176. So, so one thing, if you have this much money, you need to have an enemy. And so you basically demonize the enemy by calling out things that aren't true. In this case here, the phrase, which you will hear again and again, and you can hear this in the news, is worst of the worst. So when you look at the Department of Homeland Security press releases, one after another, they use selected cases instead of real data. Worst of the worst, worst of the worst. And so this is what people hear because they can't hear 2 or 3 sentences in a row and concentrate. But, and so many people, including the jailer in Hopkins County, this is what they believe. It's a lot easier to lock people up if you think that they're criminals as opposed to people who haven't really done anything wrong. So guess what? People started to find out about this. Hundreds of people, this is the headline here, exclusive. And this is from the Miami Florida newspaper. Exclusive. Hundreds at Alligator Alcatraz have no criminal charges, Miami Herald learns. CBS News published in June, people with no criminal convictions at all make up 2/3 of the more than 120,000 people deported between January and May. By the way, the Department of Homeland Security published a cost of how much it costs to deport each one of these people, $17,000. So, so then the New York Times says, Trump's immigrant crackdown in New York, more arrests, longer detention. More than half the immigrants arrested in New York City area since January 20th do not have criminal convictions. And so, guess what? ICE is running out of people that have criminal convictions. And so instead, they wait in courts for people who are reporting as they are required by law to do. And they are having the judge dismiss their charges, which means the court has no more authority over them. So then ICE is waiting outside the door, and so somebody who's trying to follow the law comes to court, and finds out that he is arrested. In this case, this is a rather dramatic picture. ICE agents are showing up in places like Washington on wildfire fighting sites. This is federal agents arrest firefighters working on Washington firefighters. And so this is a quote from the Senator Ron Wade out there in Washington State. One of the firefighters arrested is an Oregonian. My office has been in touch with his lawyer who says he can't locate his client. My office is working to get more information on his whereabouts. And so it is not just that. This is a teenager, a 15-year-old boy from Los Angeles. And here's from the Los Angeles Times. They just snatched this boy, and he was scheduled to be transported to Louisiana. Why would you transport a 15-year-old boy to Louisiana or transport all these other people? Well, the reason is that if you go fast enough, you can escape due process of law, which we would call justice. So how anxious is the current administration to increase the size of ICE? This is, I think, when you look at overall and you follow this every day like I am, you start to see this pattern. It's like this is an all out, you can almost not do anything more to increase the amount of people working for ICE. So this is hurricane season. Why don't you just take a couple of hundred of FEMA employees and move them over to ICE so that they can recruit? Guess what? Of all the people working with ICE right now, only 20% of them are actually ICE employees. Everybody else is working for somebody else. So 80% of the people working for ICE has diverted 25,000 officers from other agencies like home security investigations, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, drug enforcement, FBI, and U.S. Marshals. These are people that are actually tracking down real criminals, and now they are not. This is from the Cato Institute, not somebody that's I necessarily always think of on my side. Not only that, many local jurisdictions in the United States have let their personnel, sheriffs, deputies, and jailers, and other people volunteer to get ICE training. This looks good. It's like, I'm getting my employees this free training from ICE so that we can detain immigrants in our jail. Well, guess what? ICE trained these people, but then after they trained them, they sent them recruiting notices. It's like, well, we're going to steal the personnel that you've worked hard to train all these years. We'd like them to come to work for us. And then they offer $50,000 signing bonus. Sheriffs around Florida are outraged. Well, that's not a big surprise. The other thing they're doing is they're firing immigration judges. There are about 700 immigration judges that there are millions of cases behind. So now that you set the building on fire, you block the exits by firing immigration judges. They fired 100 of them, so they have a backlog of 400 million cases with 600 judges left. So that's a quick overview of what's going on in the United States. This is more local here. This is on the left-hand side over here. It's Oldham County's Wrestle with ICE Partnership. This is a grassroots organization that rose up in Oldham County to fight use of their jail for immigrant detention. Their jail has vans and they're going out to other states to round up these immigrants, people like states like Illinois where it's illegal to keep immigrants in the jail. Oldham County is actually going out to get them. And so this is where I got involved. I saw this organization, or I thought, well, I bet they could use somebody who knows something about corrections. And sure enough, I've been working with them, and I presented to a new chapter of Kentucky Citizens for Democracy in Grayson County, Litchfield, Kentucky, just this week. And so the Courier Journal printed an article, and here is the outrage over ICE facility. This is Jeffersonville, Indiana. Jeffersonville is the closest ICE facility that detains people. And I've been to maybe 4 different demonstrations in front of that jail. At the time this article was written, they had 83 ICE detainees, 19 were men, and 64 were women. Guess what? Clark County Jail gets paid for help holding these people. And so they got, this is from Louisville Public Media. Clark County gets $82,000 in revenue for first weeks of ICE agreement. This is when the agreement for ICE was $70, but I think it might have gone up to $90 a day per diem by now. And I'm not totally sure about that. It's a little bit hard to get that information, but the bottom line is that this was done without talking to the citizens of Clark County. You can get a list of jails that are holding immigrants. And so here we have 4 jails in Indiana that are holding immigrants. Clark County is one of the 4. And in Kentucky, the jails holding immigrants are Boone County, Campbell County, Grayson County. I'm going to come back to Grayson. Yeah. Hopkins County, Kenton County, and that's a little, the data is contradictory there. I'm not sure about that. And then Oldham County. And so according to reviews, data reviewed by the New York Times, there are rarely more than 10 immigration arrests per day in Kentucky. So this would explain the huge financial incentives to go get people. And guess what? Grayson County is ready for it. Grayson County opened up a new jail in 2021. And so they actually had a video on this is on YouTube. So the statements of the people on opening day are really revealing. This is the county judge, Kevin Henderson. He is still the county judge. To summarize his speech, we have the best jail in Kentucky, a self-sustaining jail. And here is the architect. And he says, out of 140 jail projects, this is a truly remarkable opportunity. Holding inmates from other agencies. We added 200 beds, a classroom, and indoor recreation. And so politicians were there. You have a state senator. He says, this isn't just about housing people, it is about changing lives. That is so wonderful to say that, even if it's totally empty. But the most telling is Samara Heverin, the state representative. She says, when I first got elected to the General Assembly, so many people said, it's so great you have a self-funding jail. And guess what? Here is the new jail, or the front of the new jail. They just added 200 beds onto the existing jail. So, this is from our Lexington Herald Leader report back in July. The number of Kentucky agencies with agreements to help ICE has doubled in 6 months. So with 729 prisoners, and it's actually more today, Grayson County is actually the 3rd largest jail in Kentucky. By population, not by bed space, but by population. The jail in Lexington has less than 900 inmates in it, and the jail here is about 1,500. Grayson County is number 3. Grayson County has 750 inmates in 536 beds. They are immensely overcrowded. And then of the people in the Grayson County Jail, they have 536 beds, and 621 of those were federal prisoners. These are people that are holding for the per diems. Most of these people are not immigrants, but of those immigrants, of the 621, 167 were held for ICE. 149 of them were women. So this is a jail that specializes in holding women immigrants.
Do you have any idea what some of the charges are that they're being?
Well, you can go back and forth about this. 70% of them are non-criminal, which means they're offenses that they came across the border.
Yeah.
So here are some of the people that are arrested and go to Grayson County. Here is a woman who was arrested in Chicago. I have a friend in Chicago, so he sent me this, so therefore I have it. And so she's now, she either is or was at Grayson County Jail. We have a worker in a old folks home in Tell City. She goes to her appointment in Indianapolis as she is required to do, and she is detained there and sent to Grayson County. And so the news report says, this has shocked not just her coworkers, but the residents she takes care of as well. Quote, we hear these stories over the whole country now, but I never thought it would be here with us. And so this is where she was, and that's where she is. You can find out how many people are ICE detainees in any of the jails if you look up detentionreports.com. And so here you see for Grayson County that the average length of stay is 15 days, and that there's 164. I went over some of these numbers earlier, but this is their criminal population is 49, non-criminal population is 115. And so when you say criminal population, even then it's a little uncertain as to how many and what sorts of crimes, and that it's hard to get this data. So once Grayson got their new county jail opened up in the spring of 2021, how did that play out? Well, here are the first 6 months, or the first 8 months that the jail was open. At first, when they got up to exactly almost the number of beds they had in June of 2021, by December, they were 123% overcrowded. And guess what? The number of local people, this is the drunk, what you might call the drunk tank, or somebody assaults somebody, or maybe they can't make bond. This is the reason that you need a jail. So this expresses the number here of people that they actually need a jail for in Litchfield. Well, this has not changed over a 5-year period very much. It's 57 and now it's 73. And so this is the amount of money they're making on a per diem basis. And so if you take the first 8 months of this year, they started out with 702 inmates, and on August the 21st, they have 759. And these are inmates that are held for the state. So they don't have but 26 inmates that are serving time for the state, whereas before they had 100 or more. But the federal inmates have gone up from 565 to 660, and now they're 142% overcrowded, and they're making almost $44,000 every day to detain people. So it is not just Grayson County that does this. This is Oldham County. Oldham County opened up a brand new jail. Here's a picture of it. They opened it up in 2019, and they had a population of, they've got maybe 330 beds there. And so the population, these are state prisoners, Kentucky Department of Corrections. They're holding almost 150 state prisoners, 83 federal prisoners, and the local prisoners, which is the reason they need the jail, 69. And so just by December that year, they went down like about half as many state prisoners now, only 78. But federal prisoners went from 83 to 163, and the local inmates have stayed the same. And so today, this is pretty close to where they are now, except they have only 30 state inmates, and they have more federal inmates. And so a significant number of those are ICE people.
Yeah.
So this is a list of some of the bigger jails in Kentucky and the amount that they're overcrowded. So here's Grayson County, which has more people in it than any other county jail beds except for Lexington and Louisville. And so here are the big jails, folks. Boone County, Christian, Grayson, Henderson, Hopkins, Kenton, Laurel, Oldham, Pike, and Warren County. Most of these jails, except for Laurel County and Oldham County, are overcrowded. And so there's a lot of federal inmates here and a lot of money is being made. These are the most overcrowded jails in Kentucky right here. The 12 most overcrowded jails. And so these go, 141%. Bell County's 195%. Most of these counties are in eastern Kentucky. Pulaski County is 197%. This is a Courier Journal article about Pulaski County. Part of it was about Pulaski County from 2006, so almost 20 years ago. And so this is a picture of the inmates in their stripes, in their crowded conditions. 67 people were sleeping on the floor. The jailer in this news article is quoted as saying, "It does pay to overcrowd your jail." It's right here in black and white. And so, and the headline, the lower part of the headline says, "Lockups crowded, lack prisons rehab programs," report says. Well, that's an understatement if there ever was. And so today, conditions in Pulaski County are no different. They're worse, in fact. So who cares about the conditions in the jail? Kentucky Department of Corrections has jail inspectors. They inspect these jails. They write the jail up for being overpopulated. What happens because of that? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Because jailers are elected and the Department of Corrections can't do anything with them, or they can't do anything to them. And so many times as I was training jail personnel and I would say, "This is what you're supposed to do," the jailer would tell me, he says, "I'm elected and you can't do anything to me." And you know what? They were right. So ICE is also going to inspect the facilities. Except that when you look closer at what's going on, they lowered the U.S. immigration detention standards. ICE has detention standards. The document is 234 pages long. Only a couple of paragraphs deal with the required living space. And part of that says that if you have overcrowding, you can apply for a waiver to ICE and you can be free for 90 days, and I'm sure you can apply for that. So ICE does inspect the jails, but they contract this out. And often these inspections take the form of this contractor calls the jails and say, "I'd like to come for an inspection in the next 2 weeks. What day would you like me to show up?" Well, this makes it easier to pass your inspection. I want to talk just a little bit about what's going on nationwide with detention. This is a little out of order here, but you've heard of the Speedway Slammer. This has made the news. This is so great. They're making terrifying names for prisons, like the Speedway Slammer and Alligator Alcatraz and the Cornhusker Clink. This is just sinister creativity. So this is the Miami. This is the Miami Correctional Facility. This is not close to Indianapolis. It's not close to the Speedway. It's 70 miles away from the Speedway. And this is the largest prison in the state of Indiana. It has 3,200 beds, and they have 1,200 empty beds. Why do they have 1,200 empty beds if they can't wait to rent to ICE? Well, the reason they have 1,200 empty beds is they can't get enough staff. So conditions at the jail are dangerous because of that.
Guess what? At the same time, Indiana is building a brand new 4,000 bed prison near Michigan City. So they can't staff what they have. They're gonna rent it to ICE. And so here is the Governor Braun of Indiana says, my goal is that anything we're doing for them, that we get compensated for it. So there you get back to the following the money again. And then a Department of Homeland Security person says that the agency would replicate its deal with Indiana nationwide. And so you have, in effect, other states are doing this. The worst one is Louisiana. Louisiana has 9 facilities. Most of these are bigger than the biggest prisons in Kentucky. And so this is a list of how many, like, you know, here's 1,600, 1,100, 1,100, 1,100, and so forth. And this is just, so you hear a lot about people going to Louisiana. Why do they ship them to Louisiana? Well, one reason they ship them to Louisiana is because they have a detention center there that is 70,000 square feet, and there's an airport right there. So this is like the UPS hub for Louisville. This is like the hub for immigrant detention. So since January, this article came out August the 21st. Since January, more than 40,000 people have been shuttled through this system. What we are witnessing is a disappearance program by unaccountable secret police. So what can we do about this? People in other places have had, this is more in their faces than it is for us. As I mentioned earlier with the 15-year-old boy who was snatched out of Los Angeles. ICE arrested more than 2,000 immigrants in Los Angeles who had no criminal records. And so this is an article from the July 30th New York Times. They saw their neighbors taken away by ICE, then they made a plan. And so people right across the river from us are making a plan to demonstrate in front of the jail. So this is August the 4th, 2025. I'm not in this picture because I took it. So at that time, the jail had 71 immigrants. 45 of the 71 were women. This is detention reports. So let's get to Louisville made the New York Times. This made the press in Louisville too, but I'm not sure anybody reads it very much. So Louisville's Democratic mayor accommodates ICE. This means that the mayor, without talking to other people, gave up the city's sanctuary status. What this means is that the jail now has to hold inmates for ICE up to 2 days to give ICE a chance to come pick them up. I call this appeasement. This is like paying the bully to beat you up only a little bit every day, not all at once. So here is our state representative, Nima Kilcarney. She says, quote, any day that we allow the administration to bully us is not a good day. And so Mayor Greenberg said there were about 100 inmates annually in the Louisville jail who are substitute detainers. This is being held for ICE. But just in the 48, but as of just about a week later, there were 36 people being held in the jail who were subject to detainers. As of August the 19th, there were 58 detainers on immigrants in the jail, so it's a lot more than 100. So what can we do? Well, one thing is you can keep your local officials informed. ICE does not want this information like what I'm presenting to get out there. You can affiliate with groups across the state and the county lines. There's Do Something Southern Indiana, and there is Kentucky Citizens, that's Kentucky Citizens for Democracy. ACLU is fighting this. You can share your information and concerns with religious and other organizations, and you can do that by forwarding the PDF. If you look up Kentucky Citizens for Democracy, their website has this PDF on it.
and pictures of me presenting in Grayson County, in case I felt like I wanted to be famous. Anyway, it's there. So, educate your neighbors, demonstrate in front of county jails holding immigrants, send your concerns to local newspaper reporters. Think about adopting a reporter and sending the same reporter a note about what's going on to let him know. And when you see something that you like, send them a note that you like it. The newspapers count clicks. Every time you click on an article, it registers, they keep track of that, and that determines what you're going to be seeing in the future. So you can look for these other organizations. I've mentioned some of them, the Marshall Project. There's a professor out of Syracuse University, Austin Coker. He has a Substack. Prison Policy Initiative has some information. Barrett has some information, and detentionreports.com. This is not all of them, but they all these people have sites. And so here's one I got just today. This is in today's Sunday paper. It's out of it's USA Today. In Austin, a technology worker created an app to report sightings of agents. It has over 1 million users. On Long Island, New York, another activist developed a similar app to report immigration raids in local areas. So the headline says, legal experts say surveillance is largely lawful. Well, so this is what folks are doing. So this is kind of the end of my presentation. I appreciate having the chance to do this. This is the 4th time I've done this. I anticipate being able to do it more. And I hope I can update the PDF that's on the Kentucky Citizens for Democracy website so that it will be exactly what you saw today. It's a little more refined. That's the end of my presentation, and that's a lot of stuff in a short presentation. You should be glad I did not read all the notes.
I know you
to go through this
should.
slide.
You've got a lot more.
So